come on. Hey, feel the rhythm. It's getting from the deepest of your soul. Now, use your senses, and everything will be easier than before. Keep on moving, funk is coming. Let yourself think, you'll become the star in this die. Spread your wings, fly to me, funk is coming.
I'm here with Bob Greaves. It's great to see you back again, man. It's very long time no see. I first met Bob on the NCG,
Right.
and he has I remember he had a weird name, the Unconventional Pastor. So do you want to start from that angle? You know, why the nickname, and you know what brought you to this kind of arena? You know, let's put it this way.
Well, it's a good question. I was a pastor, and I started out as really just kind of a generic believer. That is, I didn't know what I believed in. I just knew I believed, you know. And then at the age of 18, I became impressed with fundamentalism. Well, it's an embarrassing story. What can I tell you? And I went to Bob Jones University, and I really gave it what you call a college try. And I pursued that direction, but the more I studied, and my parents, both of them, very well educated people, you know, they taught me just by simply being in the family, you know, more concepts of critical thinking and academic excellence. So the more I studied, the more I realized I'm headed down a path that I don't see as academically viable. And I still remained a believer, but I began losing my trust in theology. And after getting a degree in human development, where I minored in linguistic anthropology, I just found the concept of the biblical text being the authoritative word of God is just untenable for me. I just couldn't do it. But it didn't destroy my sense of faith. I just didn't put my faith in that direction. And I got to the point where, as a pastor, I was more in belief of an abstraction that was it just couldn't be talked about. But I saw Christianity as a framework in which a person might, through the framework, grab hold of the experience of presence. And so I continued to work within what might be thought of as a biblical tradition, but only seeing it as a ladder, a stepping stone, but nothing of substance in and of itself. So that made me kind of what you might call, you know, unconventional.
So now I'm curious because you mentioned the Bob Jones University. I'm sure a lot of people knows about that, but I don't, because you know.
It's
So
probably,
but
yeah,
you know, the name rings a bell. But so, what is it exactly?
it's probably one of the leading fundamentalist, hyper conservative Christian colleges in America, located in Greenville, South Carolina. And at that time, Dr. Bob Jones III was president of the college. It was formed by his grandfather, an evangelist, Bob Jones. And so, I mean, in America here, it has a reputation for not just being fundamentalist and very conservative, but a college that is also considers a great number of other fundamentalists to be heretics.
Oh, so
Not straight enough, you know.
so you were literally in the belly of the beast.
Oh, absolutely. And I loved it at the time. I mean, I thought I was discovering something. I'm 18, you know, impressionable. And up until that time, my faith had been just, I believed in God. What did I believe about God? I had no idea. and it didn't matter to me, you know. So I thought, oh, here's something specific, you know. If I could go back, when I was 14, I remember sitting in church. I was at Episcopal church, listening to a message and thinking, this doesn't make sense to me. And it was then that I made the decision that when I grew up, I wanted to be a minister, and I wanted to get up there. And if I was going to say things, I wanted to say what it is that, well, maybe that God would want me to say, but I have no idea what that is. So if I ever find out, that's what I would do. And then when I discovered fundamentalism, I said, oh, maybe this is it.
Right. So
And
I
so,
mean,
yeah.
no. So I'm sorry to interrupt you because this is really interesting to me. Uh, so you basically said that while you were there, you just found out a lot of things didn't make sense and all. But I imagine that the environment around you, I mean the people around you, were quite I mean they were quite characteristic. Did the fact that they were fundamentalists brought something in their life? Could you figure out there was some difference between the other people that you were hanging out or that you knew?
Well, the dogma and the certainty without recognizing objections to their argument struck me as inappropriate. And I didn't learn to do that when I was growing up, and
Right.
just even hearing my parents talk about things, they seem to be more not only evidence based, but also more accepting of conundrum, of our irresolved issues or things where we don't know enough to yet resolve. And so it just struck me as too um, unearned know-it-allism.
No, the reason I'm asking you this is because I would expect uh, if I step into a situation like that, that kind of environment, besides what they teach, which I understand is a big part. I mean, it's university after all. There would be, uh, I would be probably be not shocked, but impressed by how people behave. So I'm expecting these people to behave in such a way that it follows, the fundamentalism. But you said that you just got back because something didn't make sense out of you. So it
Well, yeah, I did
you,
recognize the personality differences of people who were just adamantly certain, and it did strike me as really being motivated by an insecurity that they were denying. But then again, my thought was, well, so maybe they're not doing it right, but that doesn't mean I can't.
right.
So I thought the best thing to do was to really study Hebrew, study Greek, really get into the biblical text myself, and then I would do it right, you know.
Yeah.
And the more I got into it, the more I realized this is not working. This, particularly comparing different translations of the New Testament and things like that, I began to see that most of the translations seem to have a serious need to reflect the theology of the translators rather than being true to the text, and it just started falling apart until I realized that I just couldn't do it.
No, I mean I get it, but I'm sorry if I keep going that point, but I'm really fascinated by that because basically what I'm hearing is just is that it is very difficult to get out of such of an environment. I'm gonna say so. It is difficult to realize that I don't want to use the word brainwash. Okay, I'm trying to stay away from that word because I don't think it makes justice. But the fact that you find yourself in an environment which is ruled by fundamentalism and stuff like that, and now you can recognize it's not I would say a healthy environment. It's not literally open, but you're telling me that you didn't go out because of that. I mean, that wasn't the main reason, but only because of a personal, growth that you made about the topics.
Sure, yeah. I was to me it was an exploration into a direction that I knew nothing about. In
Right.
fact, when I was 18, I I never read a Bible. I didn't even know what a Bible was. I had no idea. And when I found one, and started reading, and I thought, huh, that's interesting, and that one thing led to another, and I ended up at Bob Jones after graduating from high school. And to me, it was really just, you know, something to really grab hold of and see what's going on. And but the more that I figure out what was going on, the more I realized, no, I don't. This isn't for me. I can't go in this direction.
So, okay, I get it. So your experience gave you, I think it's a unique perspective on how the mind of a fundamentalist work, And again, I understand that, the words I'm using might be gross, but
That's fine.
I'm just trying, to keep it really
Yeah,
to my level, really simple.
yeah. But
Uh,
hence the name Unconventional Pastor.
yeah, yeah, no, I get it. So the fact that you had this, as I said, this unique perspective, how did how did it shape your interaction with with these kind of people that you had while you went out? Because I understand you might have a little bit more of an understanding where they were coming from, where they were doing it at the moment. So yeah,
I hear what you're saying, and I think that for me, as a pastor, I tried to be genuinely concerned about what's going on in the lives of the people who were in my congregation. I don't think I was always good at it, but that was my effort. And I think that these people were oftentimes hurting, and people who were into this fundamentalism long term, not always, but many of them were hurting people who were looking to this for a place of hope, a place of comfort, a place of healing, a place of whatever. And I tried to create that kind of environment, and so that was winsome to them. But if they discovered that plus I was also very astute in studying the biblical text, so that when I would explain a passage and try to talk about what I believe, say Paul was really saying or what's really happening here, some of them were perhaps impressed at the scholarship I tried to bring to it. But when they discovered what I actually believed, this became troubling to some of them. And part of the reason, not the entire reason, but part of the reason I finally left was I was just upsetting people, and I wasn't there to do that. The fact that I couldn't be dogmatic, the fact that I saw biblical Christianity as merely a framework without substance, but a framework that had maybe use value in bringing you to the inarticulate abstractions. That bothered a lot of people, and I eventually got to the point where I realized I can't work from within the institution of the church anymore, and I left.
yeah, one of the reasons why I ask you that is because I remember in our previous interactions, and we had quite we had quite some. I remember that you were always really mellow, but you could get really feisty, depending on some things. And I always found that fascinating. So one thing I never understood is that if you are a feisty person, which is trying to mellow down, or just a mellow person that every so often say, no, I got to raise my voice here because that's the line I don't want to be crossed.
I try to be a mellow person, and I do have triggers.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough.
I'll tell you, one of the triggers that we ran into on NCG was dealing with some of these people, arguing from presuppositionalism. Oh my
Oh
goodness,
boy, yeah.
that was something. The, uh, but I listened to them until I figured I had their paradigm kind of nailed, and then I came to life.
So you mentioned that because and I understand that. You correct me if I'm wrong. That the reason why it triggered you is when you realized that kind of approach was only done to shut up other people. That wasn't bringing anything to the conversation, right?
It was abusive and intellectually bankrupt. Yeah. Yeah.
So what are the things do you think that it triggers you? You know, even outside this kind of conversation, because you know I'm fairly sure there might be something about politics which is going to trigger you. Uh,
Could be. Yes.
yeah,
I find now I've even told people recently, I lean left, but I find the left very narrow-minded. I find the right very narrow-minded. And I find it and I don't think it's because this is the way people are, but I think when it comes to politics, people are so insecure that they think they have to move to the extreme allegiance to their side and just hold on to it no matter what the quality of the argument, and they can't listen to each other, and as a result, it strikes me as nonsense on both sides. And I'm often very critical of people on the left and people on the right. And almost every time it happens, if I'm critical of somebody on the right, they think I'm a libtard. If I'm criticizing the thinking and the arguments of somebody on the left, they think I'm a fascist right winger. You know, it's like I'm not even on your continuum.
do, do,
Sorry.
do you think it might be a good time now for the U.S. to step into what I would call a proper parliamentary system with more than one party and you know coalitions which form and blah blah blah? I mean, like it happens in Germany, France, Italy, UK. Do you think it might be a good time now, or is the people not ready yet? They're still cling to that, you know,
It would be
idea
good
that.
for us. It would be really good for us. But unfortunately, the vast majority of people are still hoping that their party will save us from the other one. And the duopoly is really at the top, far more in collusion with each other to make sure that it's just Democrats and Republicans. The way they have constructed things, changed laws, gerrymandered, they've really done it to make sure that it's got to be their party, and if not their party, the other party. And no one else. But we have referendums going on in places where they're trying to bring in ranked choice voting, which is then opens up the gate for third parties to have some sort of an influence, even if they don't get the majority of votes. Because after all, if a Republican or a Democrat wins, but they know that they won only because they were the second choice for some other third or fourth party, then they know they don't have a mandate and they kind of have to spread their sense of constituency. I think it would really help us, but also in America here, the amount of corporatist special interest money, the donor-owned situation, I'm not really too confident that it's going to happen here in America. I really see us as in a bad way, and it could be our doom. I don't know, but I'm not impressed with where I think we're headed, and yeah, it's sad.
So yeah, I mean, so you mentioned something about you know some people you know they still have you know this feeling that you know their party gonna save them, and on the other end they're disenfranchised you know towards their own party. I remember we had a conversation long time ago. I can't even remember the topic. I think it was around that one where we all agreed, you know, that the solution was education. And you know, let's face it, education is a good answer to a lot of questions, right? So the reason I'm saying that is that a couple of days ago I was listening to a podcast from a journalist from the BBC, and it was around QAnon. Okay, and I'm not going to ask you about that, but. One of the things he said is that, well, he said two things which I think were interesting, and it ties to what we're talking about. A lot of people which believe in QAnon, there is a lot of people which come from the left, more than people actually think about. A lot of those people came from when, you know, Bernie Sanders didn't win with Hillary, so there was that wave coming from the left. The other thing that he said, you know, that approximately 15% of Republicans, they believe, well, not they think, they believe that, you know, the country is run by a demonic cabal which drinks blood from the church, and it's 15%, right? So my question to you, and it's a long preamble, but my question to you is that, given those two pieces of information, do you still think that education and education alone can be a proper answer to that kind of scenario?
I think so, but I don't think that we have real education here in America. I'm a retired college professor, and our college is really aimed around trying to prepare students to supposedly get a job. It's not really designed to educate them. I really now it's the way we do it, and so if I'm going to teach, I would taught sound engineering. If I was going to teach it, that's where I was going to teach it. But I really feel that our educational system has really abandoned the concept of education. Uh, I could be wrong, but my philosophy is that industry should educate people to do what they need to do to help that industry, and education as an industry should just teach people how to acquire skills, how to think, and how to assess, and how to embrace conundrum, and to become aware of the notions and ideas that are traveling around. But it's not there to just prepare them for a job. It's there to prepare them to be informed human beings. And I don't think we're doing that. I think our education is really just shaping people to conform to the cultural needs of our capitalism. And so but so in other words, although I think education is the answer, I don't think that what we're doing currently and calling education is the answer. You know.
Right, right. Yeah, because I think, there's also, well, the reason I asked you that is because, I'm starting to think, to believe that, there might be a point, and the point might be now, where that alone cannot solve the problems. I mean,
Well,
I see in the society, that approach of wanting everything and, fast. And, and that is an approach which it doesn't really matter if you're properly educated or not. It seems to be it's a common approach. So, that paradigm is really difficult to change just with education alone. You know what I mean? So,
addictive consumerism in a sense, and which by the way, a lot of people try to argue that consumerism is part of human nature, but that's not true. Excuse me. If it were true, advertising would not be as essential to the process as it is, because people would just go do it naturally, but they don't. We try to make people feel insecure. Sorry, I have a tickle in my throat there. Our consumerism tries to make people feel insecure, incomplete, and they can't be complete until this. Whereas that's not how you meet needs. People who have needs are really more about maintaining themselves as living organisms, not about achieving something they long for and have never had. It's really anti-humanity, in my opinion. But you're nothing yet because you don't have this car, you don't have this latest phone, you don't have the latest guitars and all. It's just strange.
okay, before we go to the free questions, we're almost there. Let's see if I can trigger you on one thing. Are you still of the idea that words have usage and not meaning?
Yes, yeah.
Bloody
Uh,
hell! I mean, I'll never make you change your mind on that. It's
uh,
it's uncanny.
no, words drift in and out of usage throughout every language, and this is not to say there isn't meaning behind the usage.
It's the every
It's to say that
language
the
part,
meaning
which
the
yeah,
meaning is more arbitrarily attached,
yeah.
and consequently the primary force that causes vocabulary to be what it is usage, and the meaning is the target, but it's an indirect reaching of that, because I mean, there was a time when the word in English "blessed" really meant oblivious to the things you should be worried about,
Yeah.
and and so just got started being used in a different way, and so now it sort of means this. Now, this is not to deny that people assign a meaning to it. They do, but that meaning comes through popular usage and the experience of that usage, and we as linguistic organisms learn these things through observing usage.
Yeah, I mean, just just to explain a little bit the reasons why I asked you this question is because this has been a thing which has been ongoing between you and me for I think years, and
Yes.
and listen, I will tell you what I told you years ago. I understand your point. It is a valid point. I think that it's a point which it's way more valid in English rather than in other languages, where that kind of balance of usage and meaning, it might be skewed toward the meaning rather than the usage. So that would be the only way I keep poking you with that.
Well, linguistic anthropology has often been called the arrogant discipline because in its attempt at being scientific, it observes what people do, what the context is when they use a word, and what the behavior seems to be following that usage. And it is in observing in the usage of language in that kind of a paradigm that it came to view that. And I would say this: almost every student who starts to study linguistic anthropology has your reaction at first. And I did. And one of the first assignments that I had from my professor was I had to go out and observe people using the phrase, you know, and I had to document all these usages and document what the context was and what the response was, and therefore what I think was being communicated through the use of the phrase, that was a difficult assignment. And my professor really chewed me through on the way I was handling it. And turned out that we don't really
Well, I mean,
use the
again,
phrase, but we don't know what it means, you
well,
know?
listen, okay, no, I get what you mean, and again, I don't want to spend too
Good.
much time on that. It's still the thing that in places like
Seems
uh,
counterintuitive.
well, Germany, France, Italy, stuff like that, where I think the balance is on the other way. I can tell you for a fact that we spend way less time trying to define terms in a conversation with somebody else, which
Well,
is
when you're in the
which
same culture, you don't. That's not as big a problem. When you're going to a different culture, it's more of a problem.
well, we don't want to start a conversation on what atheist means, right? Because yeah, we don't have yeah. See what I'm
Yeah, but
going?
the zeitgeist of a culture helps to already narrow down a great deal. Plus, I think there's many times when we think we're understanding each other, and we're not, but we don't even realize we're not. You know.
See, this
Yeah.
is exactly why I love talking to you because we can have a disagreement. We can be civil, but still, I mean, I can feel the feistiness in you. Where you just
Great.
yeah, and we can have go a beer.
But
Anytime.
there's no malignant
No, because we're
anger.
not. Listen,
It's right. Yeah.
because when I speak with
Yeah.
you, I don't feel. I mean, I feel that you are invested in what you're saying,
Uh-huh.
but it is kind of like there is no hill you're going to die on, or for, which
Right.
will
Yes.
it's not completely true, but that's the approach that you give, and I think it's a good thing to have a conversation, because
Sure.
you
Yeah.
you listen to people. Okay, anyway, people are getting bored. I don't know, because yeah. So this is the point where I ask you the three questions that you want me to ask you. So it's
Sure.
three questions that you send me, and you can answer any way you want. I just want you to keep it well. You keep it as short as you want. It doesn't really matter. So the first question is: should legislators ban the teaching of CRT? I think CRT is a common race theory. Is it
Critical race theory.
critical race theory? So okay, should legislators ban the teaching of critical race theory?
Yeah. Now this is a current issue here in the United States. First of all, I could say that I've taken 2 college courses that dealt with critical race theory. And in both of these courses, I got a slightly different understanding of just what critical race theory is. And in studying it since, I found that there seem to be people not acknowledging that there are a lot of different ways that people are understanding just what critical race theory is. So people who are for it or people who are against it, uh, sometimes I think are behaving as if they know exactly what it is, and I'm not so sure that the theory has been clarified well enough for people to nail down just what it is. But at the same time, I think that in America we have gotten away from understanding the academic concept of a theory. A theory seeks to explain why some observable phenomena is being observed. Why is it there? Is it Why is it sustained? So critical race theory is a theory about why racism has continued to be. What are the dynamics by which it operates, and this is a a theory. I don't think legislators have the purview for telling us what academics can be arguing about. And not only that, but a lot of people are concerned about where critical race theory is being taught. It's not being taught where they're worried about it being taught. And as a result, the legislation is, in my opinion, ridiculous. Now, I'll tell you this, that in the two classes that I took, there was one of them that I personally radically objected to some of the things that this professor was teaching. But you know what? he, he has every right to teach it, and if I want to be educated, I have to hear what he's saying and seek to understand it. And if I think I have a better idea, I just need to join the conversation. So I am actually opposed to legislators telling people what they can or can't teach, and I am for, in an academic environment, people who have an idea, to present that idea, to share that idea, and I think that the student needs to understand the idea, whether they agree with it or not. The point of being educated is to just know what kind of ideas are currently going around. And so I'm absolutely opposed to limiting the teaching of critical race theory. All theories, no matter what discipline they're within, begin being somewhat naive and improve over time. And the way they improve is by people go, oh, well, wait a minute, I have a problem with that in this way and in that way. And then people take those problems seriously and they refine the theory. And next thing you know, generations down the road, the theory is highly polished. So if critical race theory needs to yet come to a stronger unified concept and needs to be improved upon, fine. Because I mean, the truth is racism is a problem and it continues, and we need to understand why is it that, particularly here in the States, why are we doing this way? Why are we so racist? Why are there so many obstacles to people of color getting ahead, and why do they not seem to go away, and why are there so many people who believe those obstacles don't exist? So we do have a serious problem with it, and the only way it's going to go away is by seeking to understand it. So have at it, even if some of the ideas are a little bit off. Who cares? That's not the problem. The problem is we need to pursue this and allow the process to refine these theories until finally we've got something we go, yeah, that speaks to me.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So the second question is belief in creation at odds with the theory of evolution?
I say absolutely not, and I have several reasons for saying that. First of all, this concept that, say, Genesis chapter 1 is a description of how God created the heavens and the earth. That's a rather new notion, and when I read that text, I see in it certain Hebrew literary elements that are symbolic. For example, there's three environments discussed, followed by 3 days of filling those three environments, followed by a day of rest for a total of 7 days. The symbolism in that and the way that, say, Hebrew literary elements work tells me that the focus here is not the three environments and the 3 days of filling them, but that there are environments and that they were created. And it doesn't seem to me that it's really offering to us, and this is really the way that it happened. So I think that's a rather new kind of fundamentalist way of looking at it. So biblical creationism is, I think, not only nonsense, but nonsense from the standpoint of even proper biblical
Yeah,
interpretation.
and
So, right. But nonetheless, what if, say, God created everything 5 minutes ago? And in order to create that, everything 5 minutes ago, God had to create everything as if it had this past in order for it to be able to continue on in the future within a proper balance of physics and ecology. And so our thoughts that we have memories of what happened yesterday are just part of that creation. And in order for life to be sustainable, chances are, if, and I'm not saying it happened this way, if just over 5 minutes ago God created the entire universe, then evolution was the design. Now, how could one differentiate the difference between an evolution that really happened and an evolution that was a necessary part of that design, whether or not this God created the universe and everything 5 minutes ago, 5 years ago, 5,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago, 5 billion years ago? It doesn't matter. If there was a creation, then that would, I can't imagine that it would require quite an intelligent God, and he would have to create things that when we studied them would be undifferentiable from what was sustained and what was built in. So to me, uh, evolution is a theory that seeks to explain why all these species that are here today weren't always here, apparently, and why species that used to be here aren't here. And I think that when it comes to the theory of evolution, all we can require of it is that it be truly very scientific, based
yeah.
upon genuine observations, based on this. And I think it's an excellent theory. But I think that the idea of if things had been created is not a contradiction to that. Now, which is it? I don't know. And I don't care. But the people who are arguing with each other are trying to be right.
Well, I mean, let me just chime in,
Yeah.
two quick things here. Well, first of all, I don't believe, everything has been created 5 minutes ago. It
No,
has, it has to have to be at least 40 minutes ago, because
perhaps. Okay.
this conversation, it can only happen. Can be so. That's the second one, and I understand, that evangelists and, God forbid, fundamentalists do not consider them Christians, but this is the pond I'm swimming in. All the Catholics believe in evolution, so that is, proof that there can be an arrangement between two things, right?
It's in some ways an unnecessary argument.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
And and one that can never be resolved, because if there ever was a creation, I would, it wouldn't make sense to me that it was anything other than something that created the world we now see and observe and have theories about.
Yeah, but and also, from from a purely economical point of view, an economical argument, it's really a stupid argument, because it puts you in a position where you have to defend something which is not really core value of your religion, but because of that attitude, you have to build an infrastructure which is, it's simply absurd, and you end up defending something which has nothing to do with the values that you are supposedly going to present. So it's bonkers. I agree with you.
Well, I would say that from the fundamentalist standpoint, the main reason why they argue it is because they feel that it calls into question the authority of the Bible as the word
Oh,
of God. Yeah, and so that's what motivates them, not any actual scientific problem.
I have another reply to that, which you won't like, is because people love easy answers. They definitely love easy answers to complicated questions. So yeah,
I hear you exactly.
so the third question is, wow, gee, do you really put that question here? Okay, I will ask you, because yeah. Do we have free will, or is everything predestined? Really? Okay, carry on.
Well, philosophers argue about this kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
I know.
sometimes go back and forth. And I'm not convinced that from a scientific standpoint we understand all the dynamics of reality, or all the dynamics of change, or all the dynamics of consciousness. I mean, consciousness, of course, we use the word in many ways, but we have something called the hard problem of consciousness, which means we really don't know what's going on with consciousness, or why there's such a thing, or how such a thing is possible. But we just know that it is a thing. And we also know that when people behave as if there is no free will, they tend to behave worse than if they recognize there are problems. So I say, if determinism is true, it is an extremely complex arrangement, and I don't think that we really know the answer to that question. But I do know this: it appears that we do have to live as if we had free will in order
Yeah.
to take on responsibility. And to me, that's kind of a problem if, in order to live well, we have to assume something that is patently false. you know so I think that we have a long way to go. Not only that, but for example, when it comes to determinism, we do know, like, something like the half-life of certain isotopes. Well, we may know that carbon-14 has a half-life of, well, whatever, I can't remember what it is, but we don't still have any way of knowing, well, which carbon molecule is the
Yeah.
next to decay. We The randomness is not necessarily indeterminate, but it is it possible that there really is a detachment of consciousness from the forces of physics? I don't know. But I don't know that it isn't possible either. It's just that it's phenomenal how the interface of our biology can somehow work with it, but it's just a mystery.
Okay, Bob, thank you very much. It's been a super pleasure. And yeah, I mean, I knew it was going to be good. So again, thank you very much for your time, and don't be a stranger.
Hey, good to see you too.
Yeah.
Yes, many great conversations in the past. And to
Cheers.
continue. Take care.
If I didn't care more than words can say, if I didn't care, would I feel this way?